She collapsed beside the road. The wind was cold and sharp. It blew dust across the cracked road that ran through the rocky desert. The sun had almost set, casting long shadows on the ground. But no one was watching the road, except her. She walked, slowly, her steps weak. Her feet were bare and bleeding. Her thin robe was torn. Her arms were covered in small cuts. She had not eaten in 2 days, and her body shook from hunger and cold. She was not from this world. Her skin was light blue. Her eyes, golden and wide, scanned the empty land for shelter. But there was none. In her hand, she held something tight, a docile, small, worn photo, a picture of a baby, her baby. The alien woman had lost everything, her home, her people, her family. She had been chased from her city and hunted like a criminal. Her only crime was protecting her child. But now, even her child was gone. Her legs gave up. She dropped to her knees beside the road. No more strength left, no more hope. She looked up at the orange sky, tears running down her cheeks. Her voice was broken as she whispered, "Please, someone." She collapsed face first into the dirt. From the hills nearby, a human man saw her fall. He didn't say a word. He didn't call for help. He didn't run to get others. Instead, he stood still, watching. He was tall, strong, and quiet. His clothes were dusty and his face was rough, with a beard growing wild. No one really knew him in the nearby town. People said he lived alone, somewhere up in the rocks. Some called him strange. Others called him dangerous. But right now he was just watching a broken alien woman fall by the road. After a long pause, he moved. She woke up to warmth. There was a thick, old blanket over her. Her head rested on something soft. A small fire crackled near her feet. Her body was sore but not cold anymore. She blinked slowly. Her vision was blurry at first. Then she saw a shadow near the fire. It was the human. He sat silently, sharpening a small stone blade. His eyes did not meet hers. She, panicked, tried to sit up, but her legs wouldn't move. Where am I?" she asked softly, her voice dry. The human said nothing. He stood up and walked to her slowly. He placed a wooden bowl beside her. It had something warm and brown inside. Some kind of stew. She looked at it, confused. "I don't have anything," she whispered. "No credits, no food, not even my name." Still the man didn't speak. He just pointed at the bowl, then walked back to the fire. With shaking hands, she took the food. It tasted plain, but it was warm. Real. Her first meal in days. Tears filled her eyes again. Hours passed. Night came. Stars filled the sky. The fire kept her warm. She looked at the human again. He hadn't moved much. Finally she asked, "Why did you help me?" This time he looked at her. His eyes were quiet. Kind, maybe. Or maybe just tired. Still he didn't answer. Then he stood up and pointed toward a pile of rocks nearby. She turned her head. There was a strange pile of stones stacked neatly. Big ones on the bottom, small ones on top. It looked like the start of a wall. He pointed at it again, then at the ground, then at her. Was he building something? For her? She didn't understand. "You building a house?" she asked, confused. He nodded once. But why? No answer. He picked up a rock and began to work again. She watched him until her eyes closed once more. She had run from war, from death, from betrayal. She had lost her child. She had no home, no name, no reason to go on. And yet, this silent human had picked her up from the dirt, given her food, warmth, and was now building something for her, stone by stone. She held the photo of her baby close to her chest. For the first time in many days, her breathing slowed, her body relaxed, and she whispered before sleep took her, "Maybe I'm not alone anymore." He didn't say a word, just pointed to the rock. The sun rose slowly over the rocks, painting the sky orange and red. The wind was quiet now, but the air still felt cold. She opened her eyes. The alien woman blinked at the soft light coming through the tense fabric. Her body was still weak, but she felt better than yesterday. She smelled smoke, fire, and something warm cooking. She sat up slowly. The same human man was sitting near the fire again. He was heating a pot of water and stirring something in a small metal pan. He didn't look at her. She watched him. His movements were calm, focused. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to speak. She cleared her throat. "Good morning." The man glanced at her but said nothing. Then he pointed to the same wooden bowl from last night. It now held something that looked like cooked roots and small bits of meat. She stared at the food. "I don't deserve this." The man didn't respond. He just stood up, grabbed a tool made of stone and wood, and walked out of the tent. She took the bowl and ate in silence. Outside, the man was working again. She pulled the blanket around herself and followed slowly, careful with her steps. Her legs still hurt, but she was able to walk. He was building. Stone by stone. The wall she saw yesterday was taller now. A second wall had started beside it. He was shaping the stones with his hands and tools, placing them one by one. His shirt was soaked with sweat even in the cold morning. She stood there confused. "You're really building a house?" He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up a small round rock, walked to her, and gently placed it in her hand. Then he pointed to the wall, then to her chest, and then he returned to work. She looked at the rock in her palm. It was warm from his touch. Heavy. Rough. Why was he doing this? She was a stranger, an alien. Everyone else had turned her away. On her home planet, people called her weak, broken, even dangerous. Yet here was this human, quiet, alone, and building her a home without asking anything in return. Tears filled her eyes again, but she wiped them quickly and took a step forward. "Want to help?" she said softly. He stopped, looked at her, then gave a small nod. He handed her another stone, and together they worked. The hours passed. She helped place stones on the wall. Her hands were sore, her back ached, but it felt good. She was doing something. She was not running, not hiding, not crying. She was building. They didn't talk, but they didn't need to. The sound of rocks, the crack of the fire, the rhythm of hands working with earth, it was enough. At sunset, the walls were chest high. The man made a simple dinner, boiled roots and hard bread. They ate beside the fire. The woman sat across from him, watching his face. "You never speak," she said, gently. "Why?" He glanced at her, then looked at the fire. After a few seconds, he touched his throat and shook his head. Her eyes widened. "You can't talk?" He gave a slow nod. Something inside her heart broke and healed at the same time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "And thank you." He nodded again, but this time, there was a hint of a smile on his lips. That night she lay awake in the tent. The wind had returned, cold and sharp, but she was warm. She had a blanket. She had food in her belly, and someone was building her a home. But as she looked up at the stars, her smile faded, because something in the sky moved. A flash of light. Then a second. Not stars. Not natural. She knew that glow. Her people were searching, again. They were close. She held the baby's photo tightly to her chest and whispered, "Not yet, please. Not yet." The next morning she tried to leave. She didn't want to put the human in danger. If her enemies found her here, they might kill him too. She had already caused enough pain. She stepped out before sunrise and began walking, quietly down the same road, but she only got a few meters before stopping. There was a wall, a tall one, a new one, built across the road. It wasn't there yesterday. She turned around, shocked. The human was standing behind her, silent, watching. She looked at him with wide eyes. You knew I'd try to leave him. He didn't speak, of course. Just walked forward and pointed back toward the stone walls they had built. He pointed at her, then at the ground, then at his own heart, and walked away. She stared at him, at the wall, at the home they were building. She didn't understand everything, but she knew one thing now. He wanted her to stay, and maybe she wanted to stay too. She tried to leave, but found the path blocked. The morning was quiet. The sky was soft gray, and a cold wind moved through the stones. A bird flew over the rocks, its wings cutting the silence. She woke up before the sun. Her body still ached, but her mind was clear. The alien woman sat by the small fire, watching the sleeping human beside it. His face looked peaceful, even kind, but she couldn't stay. She told herself again and again, she had to go. If they found her here, they would hurt him too. They didn't care who helped her. They only cared that she had escaped, and her people always hunted until the end. She grabbed the photo of her baby and carefully stood up. Her heart beat faster as she stepped out of the tent. The road was empty. She began walking toward it slowly but steady. But then, she froze. A wall stood in front of her, tall, wide, new. She blinked. It wasn't there 2 days ago. It hadn't been there last night. Made of stone, carefully stacked, the wall blocked the only clear path out. She turned around. The human was already awake, standing behind her. Quiet. She looked at him, confused and breathless. You built this to stop me? He said nothing, just walked closer. Calm steps, no anger. She backed away slightly. I was only trying to protect you. I can't bring trouble here. They will come. They always come. Still, he said nothing. He walked to the wall, placed one hand on it, then pointed at her chest, then at the ground beneath her feet, and then placed a hand over his own heart. She stood still, stunned. He wasn't keeping her trapped. He was telling her, this is your place, now. This is your home. She felt her knees grow weak. No one had ever done this for her before. Not her own kind, not her own family. Not even the father of her child, a human who couldn't even speak, was giving her something no one else had. A choice. They worked the whole day, stone by stone. Now she was not just helping, she was leading. She had ideas. She started shaping. Corners, planning space for rooms, marking places for windows with bright alien stones she kept hidden in her bag. She told the human, this will be the room for rest, that one for light, and here will be a little garden. He listened, with his eyes, and followed with his hands. That night the stars were clear. She sat by the fire again, but now she was closer to him. Side by side she looked up and spoke softly. My name is Karine. He looked at her and gave a small nod. She smiled. You don't need to tell me your name, but I will give you one. She paused and pointed at the strong stone walls they had built. I'll call you Rock. The man blinked, then gave a small smile. His first true smile. But far away, in the sky, something moved. A small black drone flew silently across the desert. It spotted something, a warm heat signature beside a glowing fire. It paused, zoomed in. The image showed a human man and a blue-skinned alien woman sitting side by side. The drone turned and vanished into the clouds. The next day, Karine felt it. A chill ran through her bones, not from the wind but from fear. A quiet fear that crawled under the skin. She looked up at the sky often, Rock noticed. He watched her eyes. Finally, she walked to him and spoke the words she had kept inside. My people will come. They hunt me. Because I did not give my child to the council, I ran. They call it a crime, I call it love. She looked down. I don't want you to get hurt. Rock took a breath and knelt down. He picked up a heavy stone, turned it, and placed it perfectly into a wall, then pointed to the half-built roof above them, then pointed to her again. His message was clear. I will finish this, even if they come. Karine walked back into the shelter. She placed the photo of her child near the fire like a sacred object. She touched it gently and whispered, "If I don't make it, I hope you see this home one day." But outside, the human was still building, and the stone walls kept rising. In the dark sky above, 3 small ships flew in silence, tracking her scent, watching the ground, planning the strike. But the one thing they didn't know was that the human below wasn't just building a shelter. He was building a fortress, and she was no longer running. Not anymore. A shadow from the stars follows. Her night had fallen again, but it wasn't peaceful. Karine stood outside the half-built stone shelter, her golden eyes searching the stars. The sky looked normal, dark, full of stars, cold as always. But deep in her heart, something was wrong. She could feel it, not see it, not hear it, but feel it. A presence, something watching, something coming. Rock, the quiet human, was stacking the final stones for the 3rd wall. His hands were dirty, his back sore, but he didn't stop. Even as the cold wind picked up, even as the moon disappeared behind black clouds, he kept building. Karine slowly walked to him. "We don't have much time." He looked at her confused. She pointed up at the sky. "They found me. I know it. They're close." Rock didn't speak. He couldn't, but his eyes didn't show fear, only focus. He nodded once and began working faster. Far above, hidden in the night sky, a ship hovered in silence. Sleek, black, cold. It belonged to the Council of Preservation, the rulers of her people. Ruthless, efficient, cruel. Inside, a tall alien soldier stared at the screen. The image showed heat signatures, 2 figures near a stone structure, one alien, one human. He grinned. "There she is," he said. "The traitor, and her pet." He pressed a button. "Prepare the drones." Back on the ground, Karine helped Rock gather supplies, water, dry roots, and sharpened sticks. They placed everything inside the stone shelter. She paused and looked around. "This isn't just a house anymore," she said softly. "It's a shield." Rock watched her carefully. Then, without a word, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small square box. It was human tech, old, but dangerous. He opened the lid and showed her a set of tiny red explosives. Karine gasped. "You've been preparing for war?" Rock shook his head, then pointed at her, and nodded. For her. He had known the risk from the very start. He wasn't just building a home, he was preparing for a fight. The first drone arrived just before dawn. It buzzed, quietly in the air, scanning the rocky ground below. Karine saw it first. There. Rock turned, raised a hand, and tossed a stone. It hit the drone hard. Crack! The machine fell and exploded into sparks. More buzzing followed. 4 more drones came from the shadows. Karine and Rock ran back behind the walls. The shelter wasn't finished, but it was strong. The stones were thick. The corners were tight. They hid behind the lowest wall as the drones opened fire. Zap! Zap! Energy blasts hit the rocks, but the walls held. Rock picked up one of the small explosives and tossed it outside. Boom! One drone fell, its pieces flying in all directions. Karine looked at him with wide eyes. "Where did you learn to fight like this?" He didn't answer. But now she understood. He had been a soldier once, maybe even a warrior. But he had chosen to live in silence, away from the world, until she came. And now he was fighting again. For her. A loud sound shook the sky. A ship, much larger than the drones. It landed in the distance, kicking up dust. Karine's face went pale. "That's them. That's the captain. He'll destroy everything." Rock didn't flinch. He stepped outside the wall. Alone, Karine gasped. "No, don't." But he kept walking. He carried only a large stone hammer. No armor. No weapon. The ship door opened. A tall, armored alien stepped out. His face was sharp, his eyes full of hate. "You are protecting a criminal," he said. "Step aside, human." Rock did not move. The alien captain raised his weapon. "This is your last chance." Still, Rock said nothing instead. He pointed to the stone house behind him, then to Kareen, then back at himself. His meaning was clear. "She stays." The captain fired. A bright red blast hit Rock in the chest. Kareen screamed. But Rock didn't fall. His jacket smoked. But inside, he wore a hidden plate of stone and metal. He ran forward. Slam! The hammer struck the ground, shaking the rocks. The captain stumbled back. Rock raised the hammer again, and the fight began. Kareen grabbed one of the explosives and threw it toward the ship. Boom! Fire burst across the landing site. Smoke rose high into the air. The other drones scattered. And in the middle of it all, Rock stood tall, bleeding, bruised but unbroken. The captain lay unconscious at his feet. Kareen ran to him. He was hurt, but alive. She wrapped her arms around him, crying, "You're not just stone. You're fire too." He smiled through the pain and pointed at the house behind them, still standing, still strong. But the shadow in the stars was not done yet. Far above, another ship watched in silence, bigger, hidden, waiting. Because Kareen's story wasn't over yet. The house withstood. What she couldn't smoke still hung in the air. The wind carried it over the broken rocks and cracked road. Fires flickered near the ruined drone parts. The large alien ship, now half destroyed, gave off sparks with every groan of its metal frame, but the stone house still stood. Kareen sat beside Rock, pressing a cloth to the wound on his arm. He didn't cry out, he didn't move much, just watched her, calm, like always. "You almost died," she whispered. He blinked slowly and gave a small nod as if saying, "I know. And I'd do it again." Kareen stared at the walls they had, built together, strong, silent, holding firm even after an attack from a warship. She looked down at her own hands. They shook. Her mind spun with fear. "If I had been alone," she said, "I would have already been gone. My people would have crushed me like sand under their boots." Rock gently took her hand, his fingers rough and warm. Then he pointed at the stone beside them. The wall, the home. Then he tapped her chest, softly, and gave a small nod. "This is strength," his eyes seemed to say. "You are stronger than you think." That night, Kareen stayed awake, sitting just outside the doorway. The wind blew dust across the floor, but the fire inside kept glowing. She stared into the dark. The stars no longer felt safe. She knew the council would send more, stronger forces. A final wave. She could run. She could beg Rock to flee. But something inside her had changed. She didn't want to run anymore. She wanted to stand, like this house, like this human. In the morning, Rock tried to rise, but his leg was too swollen. Kareen shook her head. "Rest, you've done enough." He frowned, frustrated, but she placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Now it's my turn." She went outside and picked up a hammer, the same tool he had used for days, the same tool he had raised to protect her. She lifted it with both hands and went to work. Hours passed. The sun climbed high. Kareen worked harder than ever before. She added new stones to the roof, fixed the corner that had cracked during the fight, even built a small tunnel that led to a hidden escape path beneath the structure. Her hands bled, her arms shook, but she didn't stop. Rock watched her with pride in his eyes. When she finally returned to him, covered in dust and sweat, he handed her a bowl of water and pointed at her arms. She smiled. "I'm still here." He tapped the wall behind her. So was the house. Later that day, Kareen found an old human device hidden beneath a rock. It was dusty and silent, But when she wiped it clean, it blinked to life. A radio beacon. She brought it to Rock. "Where did you get this?" He shrugged. She frowned. "It's strong enough to call ships." He nodded. She looked at him, nervous. "You want to call help?" He didn't answer. Then she saw it in his eyes. He wasn't calling for help for himself. He had kept this for her, in case she ever wanted to leave, in case she wanted to escape. Karine stood still, holding the beacon, but she didn't turn it on. Instead, she placed it back under the stone and whispered, "Not yet." That night, Rock slept. His body needed rest. Karine kept watch. She sat outside again, now holding a sharpened wooden spear she made from tree roots and metal parts. Her eyes scanned the horizon. And then she saw something. A figure. Alone. Walking slowly. Not from the council. Not a soldier. Small, weak. She stepped forward. It was a child. Blue-skinned. Just like her. Karine gasped. The child looked up at her with wide eyes and fainted into her arms. She shouted, "Rock!" He rushed out, limping but alert. They carried the child inside and wrapped them in a blanket. Karine held the child's hand tightly. "She's from my city, but she's like me. An exile." Rock nodded. Karine's voice cracked. "She's just a child. Who left her out there?" Silence. Then Rock pointed at the house, then at the child, then at her, and finally, at the stars. Karine understood. This house isn't just for us anymore. It's a home for the lost. The next morning, Karine placed a new stone at the top of the wall. She carved a symbol into it, one from her people, a sign that meant safe. She looked at Rock and said with strength in her voice, "Let them come. We'll be ready." He smiled, and for the first time she smiled back, but far, far away in the black space above their world. The final ship left orbit, carrying not just hunters, but someone who knew Karine personally, someone who once called her daughter. And they were not coming for war. They were coming for judgment. She decorated the place with her past the wind carried, no fear that morning. For the first time in weeks, the land was quiet. The broken ship parts lay scattered near the cliffs, covered in dust. The walls of the stone house stood taller now, smooth and strong. Smoke rose from the small fire inside, and fresh water boiled in a pot. Karine stepped out, carrying a bundle wrapped in soft cloth. Inside the cloth were memories. She sat near the wall they built, the one Rock called the spine, and slowly unwrapped the bundle. One by one, she pulled out small objects, a glowing shell from her homeworld's river, a string of blue beads once worn by her mother, a metal button from her old uniform, back when she still believed in the system, and, at the very bottom, a small baby rattle. She held it tightly in her hands. Rock stood nearby, watching her carefully. "I never told you what happened," she said softly, voice shaking. He came closer and sat beside her. Karine took a deep breath. "My baby was taken." She looked down at the rattle. The council called her a resource. She was to be raised by their machine mothers trained to obey. I refused. I ran with her, hid in the mountains. She paused, eyes wet. But during the escape, I was injured. I woke up alone. My baby was gone. No trail, no sound, just gone. She looked at Rock, tears rolling down her cheeks. I thought I would die that day, not from pain, but from silence. Rock didn't speak. He couldn't. But he gently took the rattle from her hands and placed it inside a small opening in the wall. Then he sealed it in with a smooth stone. It was now part of the house. Forever. Karine walked through the rooms they had built together. Each one told a story now. In one corner, she hung her mother's blue beads on a hook made of twisted metal. In another, she placed the glowing river shell above the fire pit. She used alien paints made from crushed roots and began to mark the walls with symbols from her people, circles for family, triangles for strength, and stars for memory. When Rock saw the drawings, he didn't stop her. He brought her more smooth stones to paint. He helped carve the harder ones. Together, they filled the house with history. With her history. The little blue-skinned girl they had rescued was still weak, but healing. Karine sat by her bedside, singing softly, an old lullaby from her village. The child opened her eyes for a moment. Karine leaned close and asked, "Do you remember your name?" The child blinked and nodded faintly. "Leia." Karine smiled, tears returning. "Leia, you're safe now." From the doorway, Rock watched silently. He had already placed a small bed for Leia near the fire and given her his only warm blanket. Karine turned to him. "You didn't just build me a home, you built a heart for others too." Rock stepped in, picked up a piece of wood and began carving. Later that evening, Karine stood outside. She stared at the hills. Something pulled at her chest again. Not fear this time. Something else. She closed her eyes and listened. Wind. Fire. Rock's hammer inside, and then a soft hum. Not from the house. Not from the fire. But from the sky. Karine looked up. A shadow moved across the stars. No sound. No light. Just a feeling in her bones. "They're here." Rock stood beside her now. He saw it too. A shape in the sky, slowly lowering toward the cliffs. Karine's heart raced, but not with panic. She was not the same weak woman who had collapsed beside the road. Now she had walls. Now she had a voice, even if it shook. Now she had something to protect, but she whispered, "This ship, it's different, it's not a hunter ship." The shape in the sky glowed with blue light as it landed gently on the rocks far away. Karine narrowed her eyes. "That ship is old, ancient, royal." She suddenly stepped back. No, it can't be." Rock watched her closely. Karine's voice cracked. "That ship belonged to my mother. She was a high judge. She ordered me to give up my baby. When I refused, she vanished me." Rock placed a hand on her shoulder. She gripped it tightly. "I don't know why she's here. But this time, I won't kneel." That night, Karine sat in the middle of the house. The blue beads, the painted walls, the rattle sealed in stone. She looked around and whispered to herself, "This is my soul now." Rock brought her a cup of warm root water. She took it, and for the first time, reached up and touched his face gently. "Thank you," she said. "You didn't just save me, you helped me remember who I was." He gave her a small smile, then tapped the wall between them. Their wall. Their home. But outside, a new visitor walked toward them. Alone. Tall. Wearing robes of judgment. Her mother. Their stone house became a refuge for others. The sky was still. No birds. No wind. Only silence. Karine stood at the edge of the stone path, her eyes locked on the figure walking toward her. The alien woman wore long silver robes that shimmered in the morning light. Her face was older, sharper. But her eyes, cold, golden and proud, were the same. Karine's mother, a high judge of the council, the same one who had once looked down at her and said, "You are not fit to raise a child." Now she stood just meters away from the stone house her daughter had built with human hands. "Karine," her mother said flatly, "so this is where you've fallen." Karine did not move. "No, this is where I've risen." Rock stepped out of the doorway behind her. He didn't speak, just stood tall beside Karine. The high judge looked at him with disgust. "You share shelter with a human? You've become a disgrace to our line." Karine raised her chin. "No, I became free." Her mother stepped closer. "The council gave you mercy once. Don't mistake that for weakness." Karine's voice turned sharp. "I don't need mercy from those who steal children. I don't need judgment from someone who abandoned me." A long silence. Then the older woman said, "I did not come to kill you. I came to see if you are worth saving." She looked at the house, its walls decorated with alien symbols, human tools, and a child's laughter heard faintly inside. "Is this your legacy?" her mother asked. Karine didn't answer. She simply stepped aside and opened the door. Inside, the judge saw something she wasn't expecting: a glowing fire, painted walls, a child sleeping peacefully, a man with scars but kind eyes, and warmth, not from heat, but from belonging. Rock offered the judge a seat. She stared at him in disbelief. "You serve her?" Rock didn't answer. Instead, Karine replied, "No. He stood beside me when no one else did. He didn't speak, but he listened. He didn't judge, but he helped." She pointed to the stone ceiling. "He built this house from nothing. While your council burned homes to the ground." The judge remained silent. Then, surprisingly, she sat. As the sun moved across the sky, Karine told her mother everything: how she had fled, how she had lost her child, how she had almost died, and how a quiet human had lifted her from the dirt and helped her build a world of stone, memory, and love. The judge listened. Slowly, her proud face softened. "I thought I was protecting you," she finally whispered. "By removing the child. I thought I was sparing you pain." Karine's hands clenched. "You gave me worse than pain. You gave me silence, emptiness." The old woman closed her eyes and said something she had never said before. "I was wrong." Days passed. The judge did not leave. She helped fix the broken ship, cooked food for the child, even helped carry stones. And when Rock handed her a tool to build with, she didn't refuse it. Soon, more people arrived. A scared father with his 3 children, an old alien with a damaged arm, 2 sisters, chased from their town for helping refugees. They had heard whispers of a place in the rocks. Place with strong walls, warm fires, and a silent human who never turned anyone away. A place built by a woman who had nothing, and made it a home for many. Karine and Rock welcomed them all, one by one. The stone house grew, room by room, wall by wall, and every new person carved a mark in the stone, a symbol of pain and a promise of peace. Karine looked at the growing village, her eyes full. "This place was born from survival," she said, "but now it's built on hope." She turned to Rock. He handed her a small stone. Blank. She carved into it slowly and wrote, "For the forgotten, for the brave, for the builders." They placed the stone at the front gate. Above it, a hand-painted flag waved in the wind. Half human, half alien. Together. In the end, her people didn't come with fire. They came with questions and stayed to listen. Because in a world of war, a human with no voice and an alien with no home had built something louder than any speech, stronger than any army, a place to belong, the end.